Kindly open your Qur'ans to chapter number 7, Surah Al-A'raf, from ayat 181 to 185, as we continue on with our discussions. May Allah accept our condolences tonight to the Imam of our time as we commemorate the Arba'een of the martyrdom of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. May Allah grant us his ziyarah this year and every year, insha'Allah, and especially next year for the ziyarah of Arba'een. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Alhamdulillahi alladhi hadana lihadha وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين سيدنا الممجد بشير المصدق المصطفى الأمجد محمود الأحمد أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين ولعنة الله على الظالمين من الأولين والآخرين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وقوله الحق: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وممن خلقنا أمة يهدون بالحق وبه يعدلون والذين كذبوا بآياتنا سنستدرجهم من حيث لا يعلمون وأملي لهم إن كيدي متين أولم يتفكروا ما بصاحبهم من جنة إن هو إلا نذير مبين أولم ينظروا في ملكوت السماوات والأرض وما خلق الله من شيء وأن عسى أن يكون قد اقترب أجلهم فبأي حديث بعده يؤمنون. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Awaited Savior of humanity, Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, my respected teachers, elders, sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Addamallahu jurana wa ajurakum bi musabina Abi Abdullah al-Hussein salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh. Continuing on in our series looking at the matters of the Ghaybah, particular to those issues that arise within the times that you and I are living in. In the first night, we mentioned this hadith from Imam alayhi salam, in which he says that every group will have an opportunity to rule. Every group, every ideology will be placed above everybody else for the purpose that no one from that group should feel like they never got a chance to prove their ideology. They will say, if only we would have been there in charge, then we would have brought justice. Allah grants all of these different groups and ideologies and political movements the space, the time to be able to achieve that, so that none may complain that we didn't have a chance to bring justice. But ultimately, when we see that every one of these groups comes with their downfall, passes away over time and space, leaves no real world positive effects for us, that it's supposed to awaken our mind that instead of investing so much of our heart into those groups, if we had invested our heart to the same extent or more to the Imam of our time, then maybe Allah would have smiled down upon us and brought us the Imam of our time. Yesterday we took the discussion a step further, and we mentioned that in the sequence of ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna kaydi mateen, my plan is ever effective. amongst the matters of the times in which we live in is the question of, when I see these events in West Asia unfold, can I say that these are the events of alamat al-dhuhur? For example, when we read that Syria has destruction, can I say that these events are indeed alamat al-dhuhur? We mentioned yesterday that the challenge with this is that every single one of the alamat, the signs of the end of time, are not fixed. Even though we have our fuqaha and muhaddithin, and they divide these ahadith into the stages of the events, those that are definitely going to occur, those which happen in sequence one after another, those which are major and minor signs. Even though we have all of this, the hadith was mentioned yesterday from Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam, where he states himself, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajjal farajahum. Imam alayhi salam states that even if the matter is from min al-amr al-mahtoom, those ahadith which are stated to be definitively going to occur, it is within the right of Allah to cancel that event. So now if Allah has decided that He will cancel the matter of As-Sufyani, or not bring about Al-Yamani, for example, and then a man arises and says, I am Al-Yamani, but Allah in His judgment and wisdom has decided to cancel that matter, I will place stock in that event more than the event of the Imam himself, more than the matter of the Imam himself. And so the most important thing has to be my relationship to the Imam. If I hold steadfast to the Imam, if my relationship with the Imam is pure, then no matter what sign comes or doesn't, which sign I see or I miss, when the Imam himself comes, I would not miss the Imam, inshaAllah. Because that is not something that Allah can ever cancel. Why? Imam alayhi salam himself says that this is not from the matters of Amr al-Mahtoom. Rather, this is from the mi'ad of Allah. And Allah never changes or never breaks His mi'ad. So we have absolute certainty that Imam is coming. But we mentioned yesterday from the ahadith that over the course of Ghaybah, the mu'mineen will be sifted and sifted and sifted until only the khawas remain. Events will unfold, and so many people will be devastated by these events. Many will end up saying, if the Imam was real, if the Imam was actually going to come, then surely by now he would have come. One by one, mu'mineen will be sifted out. So the most important thing is to hold on to that iman, hold on to that rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and no matter what occurs, what trial, what difficulty, what famine, what disaster, what genocide occurs, as long as you hold on to Imam alayhi salam, your faith in Allah, then you will not be sifted, insha'Allah. Tonight, we move to the third part of our series, and we want to be able to talk about matters very close to home. And that is that when we see the Shia faith and the school of Ahl al-Bayt alayhim salam being spoken about in the world's media, in the think tanks, in universities, how should you and I respond? And what we're going to talk about is one matter as a way to lead the foundation of thinking, and then one set of matters when it comes to answering the question specifically. If you read the newspapers right now, whether it be internationally or locally, when it comes to the matters of the Muslim community, or when it comes to the matters of resistance, or when it comes to the matters of community cohesion, the Shia are at the forefront of those matters. Let me reword it. Right now, the entirety of the Muslim Ummah is looking towards the leadership of the school of Ahl al-Bayt alayhi wasallam. During the 60s, when the plots by Al Saud, la'natullahi alayhim ajma'een, decided to try to take over the masajids of the world, especially in Europe. They funded masajid in Germany and in France and in Britain and everywhere else. But they stated that we will give you every masjid you want. We'll build you the most beautiful masjid for free. You will have the most beautiful of tiling. But it's on the condition that we send you the Imam of Jama'ah. And unfortunately, many Muslims from Pakistan, from Afghanistan, from Germany, from France, from Britain, fell for that exchange. What happened? For 60 years, the Muslim community grew up under the ideology of the Wahhabiyya and Salafiyya. And as Shi'ism continued to rise and the star of the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam continued to rise, they saw the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam as their primary threat, as they should. And so the ideology whipped up hatred for the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Lies, every lie you've heard, every lie you've had to come across and deal with, I'm sure in your conversations at school, the workplace, with family members, you've heard it all. I don't need to mention. But after 60 years of that systematic hatred and funding of that, and annihilation of Shia, bombings on a regular basis around the world against Shia, in Husayniyat, on roads, everywhere. Every time a Shia becomes a doctor or a lawyer in certain parts of the world, they have to be taken out because we can't allow Shia to become strong. What have you found in the last few years? That when Daesh took over half of Syria and half of Iraq, it wasn't a single Sunni country that stood up. It was the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam that defeated Daesh. And now, when the illegal, illegitimate, Zionist, genocidal state runs havoc across West Asia, annihilating 100 people a day, killing 50 children a day, for 2 years, again, not a single state stands up other than a country that is under the banner of the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Egypt, where are you? Pawns. Jordan, where are you? Cowards. But Yemen, who spent 8 years of bombardment from Saudi, from Britain, from America, the greatest armies in the world, the poorest country in Arabia stood up to be able to help Palestinians. And that's all because they are under the leadership of the school of Ahlul Bayt, salawatullah wa salamu alayhim ajma'een. Allahumma salli ala. And the whole world sees it. The whole world is now looking to the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. They're in wonder that how is it after 50 years of sanctions, Iran stands, or Lebanon stands, or Iraq stands. They're in wonder that how can people that we have systematically devastated still stand for the truth, still stand against oppression. Yet these countries with so much wealth, that live on so much stolen land, they can't lift a finger, they can't get a bottle of water into Gaza. The whole of the Muslim Ummah sees it. And what's really interesting is, day by day the Muslim Ummah wakes up and is envious of what the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam has. And I'll tell you what's more. Day by day, many are moving towards the school of Ahlul Bayt because they realize that these are the principles we want to hold on to as well. Now that's one place. But here, it means that whenever the Shia continue to stand as well, the Zionist lobby wants to be able to pick the Shia off one by one. What that means is that if you're an alim and you speak, they will call the police on you and they will report your Husayniyah to the Charities Commission, and they'll make sure that your name is in the tabloids. GB News will speak about you, the Telegraph will speak about you. And unfortunately, that makes many of the Shia here very, very afraid. It's very unfortunate. The same Shia that said that if they were in Kufa, they would have been with Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, are afraid of something like GB News. They're afraid of the Telegraph writing something, a few articles. Who cares? Who cares? Really, what's the worst that they're going to do to you? So they mention this Husayniyah, so they mention that alim doing this, they mention this camp that we're running. Who cares? Back then, literally, if you were found to be a follower of Ahlul Bayt alayhim wassalam, you had your entire wealth confiscated, your family were imprisoned. Now all that happens is that they may write a 10-paragraph article about you. Who cares? Are you that afraid? Really? Shia of Ahlul Bayt alayhim wassalam are that afraid of a ragtag newspaper? But this is where we've reached in this country. That many of the Shia are afraid and don't even want to let those ulama and speakers who will stand up against dhulm on their pulpits. This is where we have reached. And so we must have an honest and frank discussion as communities, as leadership, as to how we respond when we see the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhim wassalam being mentioned in the media here, especially in this country, in its various different angles and various different facets. So what we're going to talk about tonight, inshallah, is firstly about the notion that there is a group that's going to bring about justice. And that group has to be at the forefront of the matters of justice in order to practice it, in order to lead it. Let me reword it to you as simple as this. In anything in life, when the moment comes for you to test yourself and prove yourself, requires that you've gone through previous training to get there to that point. So you go for a test, you go for an exam, any exam. You're going to go sit your driving exam. You're going to go sit your A-level exams. You're going to bench press a certain amount. Anything. There has to be practice and build up on the way to that moment, doesn't there? Nobody just goes for their test without at least practicing something. Nobody goes into the maths test without having worked for a year to understand maths, practiced it, done their homework, and then go for the test. In the same way, if there is a group that is going to bring about justice with the 12th Imam, those people have to have been practicing justice and be at the forefront of the matters of justice of their society, so that they know how to implement it when the Imam comes. What I'm going to do is show you some ahadith and have a think with you about the way in which Ahlul Bayt alayhim wassalam used to train their companions in implementing justice, and think with you that if we are not at the forefront of those matters of implementing justice, making sure that we have experienced these matters, how can then we be of true support to the Imam of our time? What you'll find is many of our communities want us to stay within the four walls of the Husayniyah, but when it comes to the real world matters outside of the four walls of the Husayniyah, they don't want the Shia to be involved or the name of the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhim wassalam to be involved. When the Imam of the time comes, he's going to be reliant on people who have experience in administrating a government, experience in leading communities. And if we don't have that experience, if we don't have that reputation, if we don't have that knowledge, we will not be in a position to be able to lead people to justice in this country or in any other country. Please open your Qur'ans to chapter number 7, Surah Al-A'raf, verse 181. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the following. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. وَمِمَّنْ خَلَقْنَا, from amongst the billions of people that we have made, ummatun, there is a nation, there is a group. What are they going to do? يَهْدُونَ بِالْحَقِّ, they will guide by the truth. Now if that community doesn't know what truth is, doesn't know how to guide by truth, is not involved in the matters of guiding others, doesn't do tabligh, doesn't do da'wah, isn't engaged in guiding others, then how can that community actually do this act? Think about it very carefully. The Imam comes and he wants to have a group of Shia within Britain to guide by the truth. But we've never done it. We've never had the experience. If I said to you, right, you have to go and bench press 200, you've never done it. I tell you, go and take an A-level maths test, you've never done it. I tell you, go and take the theory driving test, you've never read the theory book, you never practiced on the CD, you never practiced on the app. How are you going to pass the test? So you and I think that the Imam comes and all of a sudden he establishes justice, and then he wants his Shia to be able to lead this ummah, to lead the world. But we've never been involved in establishing justice in our own country. If you notice, some of the major organizations of this country that try to bring about social change and social betterment are actually from faiths other than Islam. God forbid, if someone is feeling depressed or suicidal, they call the Samaritans. The Samaritans is in the name of Christianity. You all know the story of the Good Samaritan. Or for example, God forbid, if you're struggling with alcohol or drugs, you go to Alcoholics Anonymous, AA. The 10-step AA program is administrated by Christians. It's under the methodology of Christianity. Again, not Islam. Dealing with homelessness, prisons and prisoners, climate change, cleaning up our rivers from the amount that the Conservative Party allowed to be dumped within our rivers so that we no longer have clean water, actually having food security. The matters of making sure that this country runs, often we find that it's not Shia at all involved in making sure that this country has justice being done to it. What we want is, we want to have majlis, and at the end of it we think we've done our duty. So we'll have no experience when it comes to running a government, running social services, running local government. The city or the town with the most number of mosques in the whole country in Britain per square meter, you know which town or city it is? It's Blackburn. Blackburn has the most number of masajid, more than London, per square meter or square mile in the whole country, including the four, Britain. If you go there and ask them, as an example, how many Shia are on the council? How many Shia are on the boards? You will find almost none. Why? Because our notion of justice is that the 12th Imam will do all of this. Whereas actually all along, if you look at the ahadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, Imam appointed his agents to work on his behalf to bring about justice. And each time he expected that wakil of his to administer justice on behalf of Imam Ma'soom. وَمِمَّنْ خَلَقْنَا, and from amongst the billions we have created, ummatun, there is an ummah. يَهْدُونَ بِالْحَقِّ, they guide by truth. وَبِهِ, and by that truth of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, يَعْدِلُونَ, they bring about justice. So it cannot be that you and I, in terms of the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, our values, our principles, our norms, that we are outside of these spaces. Actually, we need to be inside spaces in order to be able to bring about justice, in order to be able to make a positive step and movement. Because when the Imam comes, maybe we will find that we have not got that experience on how we can do this. Let me mention a few intriguing ahadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. In some, you will find that Imam lambasts those that try to find other ideologies and other ways outside of the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam to be able to deal with the matters of leadership. In one hadith, Talha and Zubayr, they come to Imam alayhi salam and they say to him, why are you distributing from Bayt al-Mal in a way that everybody receives equally? During the time of the Khalifate of Umar ibn al-Khattab, he used to give us, Talha and Zubayr, more than he would give others. Because we were from the Sabiqun. We were from those who were the foremost of the Muslims, and so we deserved more money than everybody else. But since you, Ya Ali, have become Khalifa, you have reduced our amount from Bayt al-Mal. We want the same amount that we used to get during the time of Umar ibn al-Khattab. Listen to how Imam alayhi salam responds. فَمَا كَانَ يُعْطِيكُمَا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَآلِهِ. He says, don't tell me about Umar ibn al-Khattab. How much did Rasulullah used to give you from Bayt al-Mal? The hadith says that they remained silent because they knew that they were caught out. The game that they were playing had been turned on its head. Because of their silence, Amir al-Mu'mineen follows up. أَلَيْسَ كَانَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ يَقْسِمُ بِالسَّوِيَّةِ بَيْنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. Didn't the Prophet used to distribute wealth equally amongst the Muslims? And then he follows up again. فَسُنَّةُ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أَوْلَى بِالْإِتِّبَاعِ عِنْدَكُمْ أَمْ سُنَّةُ عُمَرٍ. Is the sunnah of Rasulullah priority, more important to you, or is the sunnah of Umar ibn al-Khattab more important to you? See how Amir al-Mu'mineen trapped them? Because there's no way then you can say the sunnah of such and fulan is more important than the sunnah of Rasulullah. Then Amir al-Mu'mineen gives them a third level of logic. He says the following. سابقتكما أسبق أم سابقتي. Are you foremost, you, Talha and Zubayr, are you two more foremost in Islam, or am I, Ali ibn Abi Talib, more foremost in Islam? قَالَا سَابِقَتُكَ. Your priority, your precedence is ahead, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. قَالَ فَقَرَابَتَكُمَا أَمْ قَرَابَتِي. Do I have more proximity to Islam, to the Prophet, or do you? And of course they have to say, قَرَابَتُكَ. Your proximity is greater than our proximity. فَعَنَاؤُكُمَا أَعْظَمُ مِنْ عَنَائِي. Did you suffer more in establishing Islam than I did? قَالَ عَنَاؤُكَ. No, your suffering was greater than our suffering. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, that if I am more foremost than you or anyone else, I want you to know the extent of my justice. For wallahi, I swear by Allah, ma ana wa ajiri hadha illa bimanzilatin wahida. I swear by Allah, this neighbor of mine, you think that he is lower than me, you think that you are ahead of this ordinary neighbor that lives next door to me. The way I see him in Islam is that he is actually in the same house as mine. There is no difference between me and anyone else. Even though I am the foremost in religion, I will not give anyone else precedence, nor will I allow anyone else to get more money than they deserve. This is the justice of Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. This is the expectation. This is how Amir al-Mu'mineen used to be with people when it came to instituting the justice of Islam. Elsewhere in Nahj al-Balagha, Sermon 126, again from Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. This line is just one of the most profound lines in the history of Islam, in my humble opinion. Sermon 126. This sermon is in the context when someone was speaking ill about Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam for showing equality in the distribution of Bayt al-Mal. Remember, guiding by haqq and establishing justice. This is the standard by which imamat brings, that we are going to be expected to uphold. Not lower, not close. This is the standard me and you are going to be expected to hold. He says the following: أتأمرونني أو أتأمروني أن أطلب النصر بالجور في من وليت عليه. He says, do you command me? You want me to give more money to this person, more money to that person? Do you order me that I should seek support of these individuals by giving them more? Do you tell me to seek their support by oppressing those who I'm responsible for? So I'm responsible for you, for example, to make sure that you receive justice. Do you expect me to achieve victory in Islam with God by giving you more and taking away from those who I'm responsible for? Is that how you think justice is done? What an incredible statement. Do you command me that I should seek support by oppressing those over whom I have been placed responsible for? I swear by Allah, I wouldn't do so as long as the world exists and as long as there is a star that remains in the sky. Meaning, even if dunya is destroyed, so long as there is still a star in the universe, I will never do this. And then he goes a step further. Even if it was my personal property, not the property of Allah, even if it were my personal property, I would have distributed it equally amongst them. Then why would I have not distributed the wealth of Allah equally amongst them? Do you understand the level of adala that is expected from me and you when it comes to dealing with the matters that you and I might one day be placed responsible for? That the Imam comes and he says, you're my community here in Al-Asr. You need to make sure that you distribute the rights, the wealth of the ummah, to aitam, to aramil, to orphans, to widows, to the community. You have to look after this community. Your job as my Shia will be to look after the people of Woking. This is the level of standard that you and I will be held to, not an inch lower than it. If we don't understand how we're supposed to engage in leadership of the community, leadership of the ummah, participating in these things, we will have had no experience whatsoever when it comes to establishing justice. There's another hadith, or set of hadith, that come to us again from Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. And I want to show you how he writes to his governors. Look at the way he expects his Shia to be, and how the Imam of our time will expect us to be. You will know that there are many, many letters from Imam to his governors. I'll just read to you a few lines for you to get a glimpse of what is expected. His governor of the region of Azerbaijan, by the name al-Ash'ath ibn Qais, he writes this letter to him, and again you'll find this in Nahj al-Balagha. It is letter number 5 of Nahj al-Balagha. It says the following, and I quote: "Certainly your assignment is not meant to be a morsel for you to benefit from." You know, morsel. How small is a morsel of food? You know, if we're sitting together and I take one luqma and I take one morsel of food, how much is it? This much. It's a few grains of rice. Imam said, I've made you governor, my governor over Azerbaijan. This assignment is not meant to be a morsel for you to take and benefit from. It is a trust around your neck. And know that you are being observed by your commanders. It is not for you to deal with your subjects as you like, or act with save on strong grounds such as you have been instructed by your Imam. You don't get to act as you please. You're not independent of the Imam and his qawl. You have in your hands the funds which is the property of Allah, and you hold its charge until you pass it on to me. I hope I am never one of the bad rulers. Wassalamu alaikum. Just imagine Ali ibn Abi Talib writing that to you. Just imagine the Imam of our time writing that to you when it comes to the collection of the khums, the sadaqat, the zakat that would come to Al-Asr. The leadership would be responsible. In another letter, this one, it comes to Ziyad bin Abi. He says, I swear by Allah a truthful oath that if I come to know that you have betrayed the funds of the Muslims in a small or large amount, I shall inflict upon you such a punishment that will leave you with an empty hand and a heavy back and leave you humiliated. Wassalamu alaikum. Again, in Nahj al-Balagha, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam writes to Qadi Shurayh, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa alihi, that Qadi Shurayh purchased a house for 80 dinar. It's an expensive amount. Basically, he was a judge, but he had a house that was more than he required, more plush than he was required. He writes to him, I have come to know that you have purchased a house for 80 dinar, and that you have written a document for it and had witnesses to bear witness that you have bought this place. Qadi Shurayh stated, yes, Commander of the Faithful. Imam looked at him angrily. This is the hadith. He cast an angry look at the judge and said, O Shurayh, indeed someone, the angel of death, indeed someone will come to you who will not look at this document, who will not hesitate the fact that you've got a document to say that you own this house, nor question you about your evidence, whether you truly own it or not. But he will take you out of that house whilst you remain open-eyed and throw you into your grave empty-handed. that house won't come with you. Beware, O Shurayh, if you have purchased this house from money other than yours, or paid the price of it from an unlawful source, you have incurred the loss of this world as well as the loss of the next. If you had come to me at the time of purchase, Imam says, if you'd come to me and said, I'm planning on purchasing this nice house, I would have written for you a document like this paper, and then you would have not liked to purchase the house even for 1 dirham. I would have warned you about this. Can you see how strict the Imam is with people who claim to be his Shia, or are in his government, or are supposed to lead the Muslims on his behalf? But when those leadership get it right, Amir al-Mu'mineen praises those companions and wukala of his no end, such that he appreciates the example which they give. This hadith again is from Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. And Imam writes or speaks to his great companion Malik al-Ashtar. Malik al-Ashtar, as you know, was one of his greatest companions and the governor of Egypt. Malik al-Ashtar starts telling Amir al-Mu'mineen about some of the challenges that Imam is facing, and says you should be aware of this matter and this matter and this matter. Imam responds to every one of those matters, and then he turns to Malik and praises him and says to him the following: I approve of all of the ideas, all your ideas in which there was genuinely the pleasure of Allah there. You, Malik, are of the most trustworthy of my companions, and the most trusted amongst the companions, the most benevolent of the companions, and the most discerning of the companions in my eyes. Can you see the difference? How Imam writes to some of his governors versus here how he writes to some of his other governors. There are those who Imam might ask, I need your assistance. But we have no experience in leadership. We have no experience in dealing with the outside world, on how to handle the affairs of the community, how to guide others by truth, how to bring about justice. How is it possible tomorrow then, when the Quran says that there will be an ummah that brings about justice, we are ill prepared to be able to assist the Imam of our time, Imam al-Mahdi ajjalallahu ta'ala faraj al-sharif. I'll tell you a very interesting statement that was made by His Eminence Al-Imam al-Mujahid Sayyid al-Qa'id Sayyid Ali Khamenei, may Allah preserve him for us. This statement he made in one of the hawzat in Tehran on the 6th of September 2017. And it's so deep and profound, because what Sayyid al-Qa'id is saying is that the Shia experience of leadership and being involved in these spaces must continue, and must continue to improve day on day, year after year, decade after decade. Our presence in terms of social justice, political justice, economic justice is not to be averse, not to be outside of those spaces, but leading, experiencing and getting better at it every single year, so that we're ready for the level of justice that we will have to implement on behalf of an Imam Ma'soom. You understand? The level of justice with an Imam Ma'soom, how daqiq he's going to be with us, how precise he is going to hold us to account. and make sure that every penny, every word, every engagement that we have is in line with the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. And how our experiences are supposed to make us better year on year, not take us further away, not dilly-dallying, not being ambivalent of our duties. This is a deep statement. He says the following: if the Islamic revolution required struggle to originally achieve victory, then today too, struggle is necessary to consolidate the norms of the Islamic revolution. Yeah? In my words, Rome wasn't built in a day. This is what he's trying to say. Have you heard that phrase? Meaning what? That the empire of Rome, it took time, right? You remember that Rome built straight roads, was the first. Had aqueducts, had a very trained army. Remember? You remember when you go to school and you study Roman history? Wasn't built in a day. It took centuries of development. Sayyid al-Qa'id says, if the revolution required struggle to achieve it, victory, then so too is struggle required to establish its norms. We must bring to fruition, we must bring those norms to fruition, so that society becomes a genuinely Islamic society. We do not have an Islamic society yet. Think about that very carefully. It's not my words. This is the leader of the revolution saying in Iran, in 2017, we don't have an Islamic society. We may have an Islamic revolution, but don't kid yourself, we don't have an Islamic society. That takes time. Between the time of establishing a revolution and making a society, there is a gap. There is a delay. We do not have an Islamic society, nor do we have an Islamic government. Oof. Amongst the multiple stages of achieving this, we have outlined, we are still at the stage of establishing an Islamic government. It takes time to get people into the notions of justice, to understand how to be able to create justice, how to respond when things are going wrong. After the Islamic government comes, then the Islamic society comes. These stages lie ahead of us. We were able to create an Islamic revolution, that is, a revolutionary movement. Then we were able to establish an Islamic system based on the movement. Very well. Up to this point, we have achieved great success, which is indeed very significant. However, after this comes the creation of a genuinely Islamic government, meaning the Islamic managerial systems, the structures of our land genuinely reflect Islam. We are still far from reaching this goal. Of course, this does not mean anyone should feel hopeless, not at all. We are moving forward despite all opposition, all sabotage, all defiance. We are progressing undoubtedly. There are many reasons to believe in this progress, but we still have a lot of work to do. We are still far from being able to establish an Islamic government. But once an Islamic government is established, only then will it be time to create an Islamic society. So my dear ones, you must struggle. Do you see that? When the Imam comes, he will ask us to establish first the revolution, then comes the government, then comes the Islamic society. But how can the Imam ask us to participate in that revolution, in that government, in bringing justice, if we have no experience and no space, no reputation when it comes to establishing these things? No one's heard of what we do. Nobody knows how we manage, how we're engaged. They only know us by what the media tells them. It has to be upon us to go forward and help establish justice so that people themselves begin to understand what it looks like. And the more we experience and practice that, hold ourselves to account, the more closer we will be when it comes to expectations of the Imam that are upon us. Tomorrow, inshallah, we'll go further into this topic and we'll talk about what that means for the Shia when its name is mentioned within the media, when we have our leadership in the spaces of Britain. Right now we have ulama in spaces of leadership, in the spaces of interfaith and intrafaith, people who are in the spaces of government, in the media. What specifically are the guidelines that are upon us? What are the expectations that are placed upon us if this is the level of justice that is required from us? How are you and I supposed to be able to act? And this is something that we will come to tomorrow in the name of the 12th Imam, Imam al-Mahdi, Ajjalallahu ta'ala faraj al-Sharif. Tonight is the night of Arba'een, which means that tomorrow we will be commemorating when Imam al-Sajjad, Sayyida Zainab, Sayyida Kulthum, Salamullahi alayhim ajma'een, returned back to Karbala to do the ziyarah of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. There are many narrations that say that they are returning with the heads of the shuhada. From the time in which they left Karbala to the time in which they arrived in Kufa and Sham, every part of the journey they had to see the heads of their family members on spearheads in front of them. According to one narration, the head of Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam fell once, and the horses of Yazid's army kicked the head of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. According to another narration, when the Sabaya, the captives, arrived at the great door of Sham, they begged their captors and said, please remove the heads from our vicinity, because right now the heads are in between us. So if the people of Sham look at the heads, they will also see us without our hijab. Please move the heads towards the front so that people stare at the heads and do not stare at the women of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. So the heads were there, and the heads are going to be returned tomorrow back towards Karbala. But I want to remind us tonight that there was one thing that was left within Sham, and that was the 4-year-old daughter of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. When she was crying and weeping and screaming for her father, it is said in the Maqtal that she saw her father within a dream. It was her grandmother Fatima al-Zahra that Sakina saw her in the dream. She saw that Fatima had the shirt of Imam al-Husayn, and it was torn to pieces. It was blood red. She was placing this towards the arsh of Allah. She said, oh Allah, this is the shirt that I will bring you on the day of judgment in order to receive my compensation, my justice from what has happened on the 10th of Muharram. It is said in the Maqtal that Ruqayya woke up from this dream screaming, Wa abata, oh my father, I long for you. Oh my father, do you know how they have been lashing us? Do you know how they have been lashing Sajjad? Do you know how they threw boiling water at us? Do you know how they hurled stones at us? It was with these tears that Mal'un Yazid sent the head of Hussein to Sayyida Ruqayya. The narration says that when they opened up that door of the prison and they presented her with the head of Hussein, she took it into her arms. She ran to the corner of the prison. She screamed for a few more minutes, and then the cries went soft. Not only did the cries of Sakina go soft, but the breath of Sakina came out. After they gave her ghusl and her janazah and buried her, when the revolution took place and Yazid was forced to allow the captives to lead, the Zakirin say that as the Sabaya were allowed to leave the prisons of Sham, that as Sayyida Zainab was counting everybody up, as Imam al-Sajjad and the Qafila were getting ready to leave, there was one person that was missing from the group. Where was the mother of Sakina? They went back inside the prison. They said to her, our time has come, we must go back to Karbala. We must go back to Medina and tell the story of Karbala. All she could say was, Zainab, in Karbala lies my son Asghar. In Sham lies my daughter Sakina. Why do I go back to Medina? All I want is to be with my son and my daughter. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. مات الحسين يا حسين يا حسين.